Hey to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 207 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your co-host, Luke Millette, and here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Shara Downey, and if you want to know more about the abroad lifestyle in the chiropractic world, stay tuned. All right, so this is episode 207 of the Chiro Hustle podcast, and we have Shara Downey here with us today, and you're coming all the way in from
Singapore.
And Luke and I are coming to you live from Grand Junction, which is the Grand Valley on the western slope of Colorado. We moved here. Why, Luke?
To hear the birds.
To hear the birds chirp. That's a lot of fun, right? And we practice what Jose Salgado calls funditude. And we like to have fun with what we're doing with our personalities. So I think we're off to a good start.
Perfect. I want to join.
Welcome to our show. You're joining us now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you. I know that we have some concentric circles that we're in. One of those is our networking group called the Inner Circle. Mm-hmm. And we had a chance, as you were mentioning before we went live, when we were out in Malibu, California, we had a chance to have dinner together just over a year ago. So it was really great to get to meet you, and that was a magical night.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really good.
Yeah, so CJ Bankert, if you're listening out there, thank you for getting us all together for dinner that night. Yeah. So leading into this interview with you, first of all, it's a real pleasure to have you onto our show. But second of all, I know that you're a chiropractor and originally from Canada, mm-hmm. And you went to what's that?
MMMCC.
I know there's a lot of words that entail the Canadian Chiropractic College.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are shy about that name, but that's okay. I'm proud of it. CMCC, Canadian Memorial Chiropractic.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions we'll get to at the end of this interview with you is about chiropractic schools. But starting out, would you mind just sharing with our audience your story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor?
Thank you. I always say I was the reluctant chiropractor, actually. I started out attending a chiropractor, an activator practitioner in my hometown, and I also happened to babysit for him, but I didn't even know he was a chiropractor. So when I went into university and started to study and went more of a medical route, I hadn't even thought about chiropractic. And I was entering into a master's program in Calgary, Alberta. And that year, I happened to get into a really serious car accident. And serious, I mean, my car went from a fully 4-door sedan to the front panel. It collapsed completely because I was smashed between two cars as we were entering onto the highway. And the person in front of me decided to stop, and 3 people behind me going 80 kilometers an hour didn't. And so I always say for literally 4 inches, I would be gone because I had somehow turned my car just enough to try and merge onto the highway that they got all of my car smashed except for the front driver's seat. And so after that, I didn't really walk. I wasn't really functioning at all and, had a lot of other whole host of issues. And I saw a physio and I saw my medical doctor. And for about 6 or 7 months, we had some progress. But really, I was still getting blinding headaches every day. Like I couldn't leave my house because they couldn't trust that I wouldn't lose my vision. Besides the pain, like at that point, they weren't even considering getting the pain to go away. It was more actually being able to function. And one day the doctor just looked at me and he just said, I don't know how this works. I don't even know if it works, but some of my patients have had luck with this guy. And he kind of threw a business card across his desk at me. And it was my first amazing chiropractor, Dr. Michael Cricken in Calgary, Alberta, and changed my life.
What a powerful, powerful story. And how old were you when you got in this crash?
24.
24. So now being a mama-practor and having 4 kiddos of your own, What a blessing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And part two to this part one question is, I know that you practice in Singapore.
Hmm.
What else would you say that makes you unique in this chiropractic space besides practicing in Singapore?
um, I think in general, we all love something about human anatomy, human body, human design, how amazing that we are that we're able to have this gift of something that's self-healing. But unique wise, I always knew I was going to travel. I knew that since I was like 8 years old. So I'd done some missions trips. I'd worked in Thailand already by 14. I worked in an orphanage in Mexico. So I was this buzzing bee that I knew and loved Canada, but I knew I wasn't going to stay there forever. And so I had applied in a few different places, Australia and the UK. And at the time I was moving from Toronto and it was very, 4 million people. So I didn't want to go somewhere too small. So I kept going east. And obviously in my heart, I'd had an impression of Southeast Asia. So we ended up in Singapore. And the locality is unique, but also just how we practice, right? Like integrating not only the Chinese medicine aspect of it, the theory and the philosophy behind Ayurvedic medicine, like we're exposed to so many different beautiful philosophies of natural health that we can pick up and integrate with chiropractic. And someone coming from CMCC, and this is why I'm proud to say I'm from there, because I actually had to go into the world to learn about what chiropractic was. So I have amazing skill and amazing diagnostician, right? Like I'm able to diagnose, I'm able to be that perfect doctor, but philosopher came when I came out of school and being overseas and being, with communities that they don't care about your degree. They just want you to help them, right? They want you to be able to make them be better so they can provide for their family. They can have, better sleep, be able to have children and all of these other things that are in living color of what our chiropractic philosophy is.
Well, maybe you could touch on some of the differences between practicing in Singapore as opposed to in the States or Canada. Like, what would someone experience differently when they walk in?
I think now, being that it's been here now for almost, let's say 25, 30 years, it's probably more similar than not. But when we first came, it was like the Wild West. You went just anywhere, planted a flag, and that was your piece of land. And so we had the opportunity to educate and introduce the whole idea of chiropractic to people. Like there's a whole nation of people that didn't know what it was, and it was but for us that brought that message. So now I think it's probably more similar. We have more leeway as far as less restriction on what we're saying. We can say, as long as it's something we've been trained in, we're allowed to talk about it. So vaccines discussion, immunity discussion, vitamin supplements, whatever, all of that can be had. There's no restriction in that sense.
So what are some mantras that you live your life by, or what are some inspirational quotes that keep you fired up all the time?
Okay, so this is going to be a little funny. My quotes, and I love them, but the ones that really work are the ones that when you're in the middle of a panic or you're, fight or flight and something comes through your head, right? Like that's going to be your sentence that you then keep. And that's what you're going to use as you keep going, moving forward. So a lot of those are, sometimes like, oh crap, but usually things like, this too shall pass. And that's a really important one for me because we have to remember that every moment in time is not identical unless we make it that way, but we have the power to change that.
I love what you said. My favorite quote of all time is, oh crap, now.
Mine too.
Well, it's a good state changer, as Tony would say, Tony Robbins, right? Like when you think that and have that in your mind, it does also trigger you to go, okay, stop. What can I make different? What else can I see here? It isn't just what I'm looking at. What else is involved with this situation? So it does help you to state change.
Well, I know that over the past 5 years that being authentic and transparent have been pretty important things in our state. So I think that, just sharing with people a little humor is also very important.
Yeah, true. Very true.
And, I love the interviews where we get to laugh more. And this is really fun. So I know when we came into this, I said that Luke and I enjoy this because we have fun doing it. And you're like, yeah, let's have some fun today. And it's like 6 a.m. over in Singapore. So we're starting your day off right.
Yeah, this is how I love to start my day.
So how do you think the world would change if everyone started getting adjusted regularly?
I think we need to back up one step from that. And the reason I say that is the powerful nature of what we do involves principles in our own DNA and our own body that are there for a reason. Self-healing, amazing intricacies that we don't even know are there and working. And I would love the world to know more about that, right? So already that kind of knowledge that you have this mind-body connection, that you can facilitate your own healing, that you have those secrets inside, right? You've got the recipe in there. We were talking about cooking earlier, right? The recipe's there. You just need to put the ingredients together. And then, take out some baking soda, right? Remove some of that interference, and put in some more sugar, less sugar, leaven, whatever. So in that sense, I'm really passionate about people understanding how well they can actually function, operate, heal within this amazing body that they have. Then we add this powerful thing called the adjustment, right? So we're now not messing with any of those chemicals, with any of those ingredients by injecting foreign things, by shoving things in there that shouldn't be, that change the course of pathways and change the course of how things should operate naturally, right? Things aren't clicking and connecting because the adjustment just removes interference and then your body can allow itself to heal. So I don't know if that answered your question, Luke, but that's kind of where I see it, is more people having this ability to really understand how amazing their body is and how it's already pre-programmed for health.
Well, I learned a lot of this, what you're talking about, from going to this little special thing called YouTube. And I watched this video by Reggie Gold called The Chemistry of Life. And that really was what gave me some fundamental idea about what chiropractic really was and what the power of the adjustment was actually doing.
Yeah.
And then, I listened to Fred Schofield talk about this quadrillion million cells inside of the body. And I was just like, who is this crazy lunatic from South Africa that runs Anthony Hopkins that's telling me that there's a quadrillion million cells inside this body? And I just started listening to both those guys.
Yeah.
And my chiropractic IQ went from here to there. And I just knew that was something that really inspired me. So when Luke asked the question, what would happen if everybody was getting adjusted? Well, we'd have a higher level of consciousness in our culture where people would trust their bodies to heal naturally. And they realized that the chiropractic adjustment gave them more life than solved a concern with pain or symptom.
That, and also just more life in general, right? Like opportunity for energy, awareness, expansion. They're getting out of their 9-to-5 box, their 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. box, or whatever shift you're working, but just giving them back opportunity for possibility. And I think that gets lost so quickly. And I know it seems to be a lot to give pressure to the chiropractic adjustment for that, but it really is, excuse me, it really is linked. And I want people to understand that. And that's what I'm passionate about, why I feel like it's important that more chiropractors are, to their own level, their own definition, but more chiropractors are successful. They're not quitting because things aren't working, or not leaving practices because it's not working for them anymore. They still love it, but I'm not sure how it works.
And I just want to say amen, sister. And I love you before we go further. And thank you up to this point for everything that you've said, because everybody needed to hear that.
Okay, thanks.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years or so?
That's a big question, Luke. 20 years is a long time. I've got 4 kids. I'm happy to get through a week.
Where do you see chiropractic going in the next week?
Thank you. So this might help explain that. I have 4 kids. My eldest son just had surgery. And the surgery he had was planned. So we knew it was coming. It was a congenital condition he was born with. And when we were born, we were told this for sure has to be fixed. And by 6 months of age, the doctor said to us, you know what, let's do it now. The kidney is going to be damaged. He's going to have infections. He's going to have problems. And at 6 months of age, they need to cut the body open. They need to take the kidney out of the body, which is really massive, right? Really massive. And I said, no, I'm going to consult with a few other people. So we sent the scans and everything to Canada and Australia, where doctors are not motivated by money, to make sure that what this person was saying was correct. And in fact, the surgery has to happen, but they said until there's signs and symptoms, UTI and other infections, whatever. So the doctor said to me, okay, well then we'll do proactively antibiotics until he has the surgery. So my son just had surgery and he's 9. Can you imagine 9 years of antibiotics? not going to happen. And so I said, no, when he has an infection, we will have a conversation at that time. But for the moment, no. So we left the doctor. My kids are regularly adjusted. They regularly eat well, but I mean, we're not saints. They have junky food as well, but they exercise, like they have a wholly integrated life. So every year when we get scanned, the doctors are amazed that the kidney's intact. The kidney, for the little function it hasn't changed. It hasn't had any damage. And that's the balance that we've been playing with, because if we leave it too long, of course, the kidney can die and it has to be removed. So this year, with a whole host of other decision-making, we decided was the year to do the surgery. It was laparoscopic. He was out of ICU within 3 hours, where they thought he would be in 4 days. The surgery went slightly longer, more because the doctors wanted to make sure it was really set properly. But he was out of the hospital within 5 days, which was normally supposed to be a 10 or 12-day stay. He was off school for 4. He's been back at school. Other than a few like minor discomforts at the surgical incisions, the kid is normal, right? So if that's not an example of what a chiropractic lifestyle can do, he's now come out and he says to me, how can I be a doctor where I help other kids and make them not afraid of being a doctor, and help them get better, and that's my first child. My second child is asking me, oh, I'm so torn. I want to be a chiropractor and I want to be a teacher. I just don't know which one to pick. Okay, you're 6, pal. It's okay. But that's what I see in 20 years. The impact of what we're doing is more people who are living this integrated into their life are now practitioners, whether they're chiropractors or they're other people who are supporting chiropractors. They're building that professional awareness, but also just the helping healing healthy families, right?
Yeah, you hit it so cleanly. Earlier, we interviewed a gal named Sherry Mosley, and when we talked to her, I was like, so tell us your story. And she's like, well, I knew when I was 6 years old that I wanted to be a chiropractor because I followed my dad around on this chiropractic roadshow where he'd go to seminars all the time. And I got adjusted and I just loved it because I felt better and I just loved what my dad did. And she's like, when my dad wasn't like working in the office, he would wake up early and he'd go knock doors and say, hey, this is me. I can help keep your family healthy. And then when you get done taking care of people, he'd go knock doors and he'd meet people and he'd say, hey, this is me and I can help keep your family healthy. And she learned from him. And now she's 17 years into practice.
Nice.
And I was like, so you followed in not only your dad's footsteps and your brother's footsteps. And she goes, no, my brother's actually older than me, but he's following in my footsteps because I knew I was going to be a chiropractor. So it is important, and you are setting a standard for being a mama practor and taking care of your kids the right way and showing them that health is definitely something that is a responsibility long term for us. And it's not just like, hey, I got sick and I want an antibiotic. No, I don't feel, something's not right. I might need an adjustment. And I think that that's the course that we hope in 20 years where we go as a full-on profession is that people get more hope and less dope.
Absolutely. No, I mean, my 4-year-old daughter will come and take my portable table and she asks for her own house call because she knows that's the table I take for house calls. So she's like, Mommy, I need an adjustment. I need a house call.
And that's the beautiful thing is because when you start understanding that chiropractic is a family type thing. I used to work in a clinic, and when people would come in as a family, I'd always say the family that get adjusted together stays together. And I always thought, that was kind of like a fun thing to say, but I really meant it too. And, if a family that does practice good health together, there's a dynamic there, whether they're eating together more, like I said, for you with Luke and I. When we eat together, we have conversations. We stay on the same page. We don't feel blindsided by a decision that we don't know somebody else is going through. So I think when a chiropractic family starts to understand this, now we matriculate through the ages and we get new chiropractors, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and people just love the profession for that reason.
Yeah, definitely.
So who are some of your heroes? And if you had to pick one person to have lunch with, who would it be? It could be anybody.
Okay, not to be corny, but yeah, I think many heroes. I think living wise, I mean, there's amazing people who have overcome and are successful. So obviously, people like Oprah Winfrey, for a multitude of reasons, she's overcome an amazing story. She's come from struggle, but also she's come from diversity, and she's a woman, and now she's so successful. And I also feel that, some of the people that went before us, right? So chiropractors, I don't even know that were chiropractors. I would love to meet them. And even people who were energetic medicine people, like it doesn't have to be chiropractic specifically, because maybe 2000 or, whatever, 1,000 years ago, that's not what they would have called themselves. I'd love to meet some of these guys that were like alchemists in Egypt, so that have like some of the secret sauce. I find that stuff very fascinating. And I would love to know how amazing these things that we think are inconceivable because they were so, quote, behind, were already being done at the time. So that kind of thing would be very fascinating for me. And the person I would have lunch with, hands down, my mom. So she's not with us. She left when I was 16. And I've had a long life where I've had it without her versus having with her. And, a lot of transitions, right? High school, marriage, kids, schooling. And I would love to have like a coffee chat with her, catch up, show her pictures, and also just get insight from her, what other things I would have learned had she been around longer when I was, at a more adult state to be receiving the information. Because there's only so much you can take in when you're 16, even though she's trying to impart the greatest life lessons, right?
How beautiful. Like your responses to our back and forth is just so amazing. And I think that
thank you.
That's the power of what we get from these conversations. And, if I can ever reiterate our messaging, we didn't create this show for us. We created it for you. And when we get a chance to have you tell your story, it's not to tell your story for you, it's to tell the story for them. And the people that are listening, and the people that will this will be a story in the history of chiropractic now that's always going to be documented. So to hear what you're saying now, you'll go back and share this in maybe 10 years with people or 20 years with someone. And then there'll be a snapshot of you on this day with us that will just, might bring a tear to you. And you'll say, you know what, that was a time in my life where this thing was happening. And this is the documentation of that. So yeah, I think also keeping free speech in chiropractic, because there's parts of Luke and I, what we do, that we have a little bit more leverage with our ability to have voices being non-DCs. Sometimes chiropractors feel a little bit regulated with their messaging. So knowing that we have free speech in chiropractic with our show, it really gives a lot of leverage to the truth of chiropractic. So sharing your truth, and sharing your truth is massive, because, you come from a perspective of Canadian, living abroad. And really, like you said, you're at that crossroads of Ayurvedic, you're at that crossroads of Chinese medicine, you're at that crossroads of wild west of a new nation that didn't know anything about chiropractic. And then you bring, more of a medical mindset of chiropractic to that culture. But you also understand that, from that perspective of how we see chiropractic in the States and how we see chiropractic up in Canada, and how now you see it over there where you are. And that's a whole different looking glass now. So getting your perspective is super valuable for our listeners.
Well, and it's interesting even in our clinic, because you'll have people from Europe, from South America, from Australia, of course, American, but they all have a different perspective of chiropractic. So I've actually learned from my patients. I have learned very quickly although they've seen a chiropractor before, you can never assume or understand what they think chiropractic is, because they're coming literally from anywhere in the world. So, I have students that maybe are European, but they studied in Russia, or they were in Mongolia for a while, and that was their first exposure to chiropractic, or in China, so I learned from them as well, which is really fun.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, ChiroThin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Chiro Tax Pro, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
And the other part of what you said earlier that really stuck on my heart was you took your son to people and shared the results with people that weren't money motivated. And that's a huge truth in the medical space, is when you can get real, diagnostics and real knowledge from people that are not money motivated by a system, but they're motivated by truth of healing. And I think that's why I fell in love so heavy with chiropractic, because chiropractic does have the premise of give, love, serve, and serve for the sake of serving, give for the sake of giving, and love for the sake of loving. And I loved that thing about that messaging is why I loved chiropractic, because it was always about the truth. And it was always about making people better. And it was about the exchange of equalness for care provided. And I think that's what makes your profession so beautiful and unique. And that you saw that in the other, nations that practice that were not money motivated, really inspired.
No, thank you. And I hesitate to say that because obviously everybody needs to be able to live and to have, a living. But coming from a country where medical is free and living here, I don't even think I had medical insurance for probably 5 or 6 years. And not on purpose. I just hadn't even thought of buying it, right? But everything here is similar to the US. It's a pay system. And so when I felt that pressure and you're a new mother, first baby, not sure what to do, where to go, and you're still also trying to stay strong with your knowledge that there is some self-healing happening, I didn't want to be pressured for fear. And so we were fortunate enough to have a family member in Canada who does, pediatric nephrology. So they were able to help us out. And then we found a doctor in Australia that's similar. So those systems not having a for pay basis, I just thought I would get a similar thought process without it being about the money.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what are some marketing things you've tried throughout your career that maybe just did not work at all? And what have you learned from it?
Having my husband stand in a mall giving out flyers. Bless his heart. This super tall 6'3" Caucasian man in the middle of an Asian mall in Asia. And he's bald, right? Like he shaves his head. So talk about the scariest figure possible, trying to say, please come and see me and handing out flyers. So I think in the beginning, it was doing what others did before you, but maybe not understanding their purpose. So sometimes when you just copy an action without understanding the intention, it's not always as powerful and strong. But I would say any of those kind of mall screenings or or even standing at a train station, handing out flyers. That's very much in the culture here. But for medicine, quote, medical type of profession, it wasn't as successful.
What are some things that did work?
The biggest thing that worked for us was instigating different referral programs. So one of my very first coaches ever, David Jackson, had an amazing system that he put together for us to use and adapt to who we are in our clinics. But it was a referral-based program. And that was huge for us. And the other thing is getting involved in the community. So we do a lot of community events, obviously COVID notwithstanding, but getting involved in the community and community for connection, not so much for, hi, I'm a chiropractor, come see me, but connecting at whatever event they're at. So we did a lot of dragon boating. We've done the Strongmen's, Singapore Strongmen Association. We've supported them for a long time. And, just being around and being able to answer questions. And the biggest thing is to integrate chiropractic into their life, into what's important to them. So we're not there to just market for marketing, but we're there to show them in their amazing life and whatever they're doing and find important, chiropractic can also fit in. And this is why it will benefit you and you'll be more powerful. And this is how your body will be better because of it. But it's not more about come to see me. It's about look how amazing you could be.
So more community outreach.
Yeah, community outreach. That's a good way to put it.
Well, what's some advice that you might give to any struggling chiropractic students who are out there listening?
Where to start? I think the number one thing is you need to have a circle around you. So if coaching isn't for you, I know some people don't find it for you. I've always had a coach. Get yourself a group of colleagues that you are in touch with, someone that you are able to communicate with, to bounce ideas with, but also to be your support, to hold that space so that you can bring questions where you don't know. That would be the first thing. The other thing I would say is you have to get a steel trap. That mindset, this right here, has to be the strongest thing on the planet. You should not be in the gym only for your physical body. You need to be doing mental exercises. And honestly, no word of a lie. I've had points in my practice after my second child, and we had a doctor come in who was supposed to take over for 6 months, and it didn't even last for 6 weeks. We were down 70%, right? So I'm coming back after a birth of 6 weeks only, and having now 2 children and having to build a clinic. Like, I wasn't even able to pay staff. I wasn't able to pay rent, right? Because it was so horrible. And within 5 months, we turned that place around and we were doing better than before I left. So the ability to do that without freaking out, and I'm in a foreign country. There's no one I can live with if I can't pay rent. There's no one I can go to babysit. I have to get on a plane and leave if I have no money, right? Like, these are real realities. So the only way to change your circumstances, you got to change what's between your ears. And that was probably the biggest example to me for why, this is why I do all this work. This is why it's important. So that would be a big one for me. If you're not doing any sort of mental upkeep, those cobwebs need to be cleaned out. And then lastly, I would really encourage people to keep learning and be open when you're learning. I think sometimes we go many different places, right? You're doing self-development, you're going to seminars and chiropractic, outside of chiropractic, and that attitude of, been there. I know this. Yeah, I know this already, can sometimes creep in, but really keep the spirit of curiosity. Always be open that something brand new is going to smack you in the face, and it'll be a fantastic learning.
Yeah, you're just dropping bombs there.
Do you think students should pick their schools based on geographic location?
I'll be honest, I did. I had when I saw my first chiropractor, he had applications for Life West. He had every intention of not letting me go to CMCC. And I went because it was in Canada and I could get a student loan to go there, right? Right or wrong, you have to make the best of it. I think the important thing is that you research where you go to school so that when you go, you know where else you need to do some learning. So if you're in Life West, maybe you need to go out and do some learning, otherwise. If you're at CMCC, definitely more philosophical learning, even business learning, even patient connection learning, all of that has to be done outside of the school.
Yeah, do you think it's important when the campuses bring on outside sources to speak at different events at the schools, or did you guys have much of that in the Canada Chiropractic College?
I think it is important. Our school had restrictions on that. So based on the person, their message, and the amount of evidence around what they were speaking about was what was allowed on the campus.
Yeah, some schools have had me come to speak.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the first thing that a couple of them told me is the first thing you can't say is subluxation, and the second thing you can't talk about is innate intelligence. And I opened up my talk and I said, so I've been told that I shouldn't talk to you guys today about subluxation or innate intelligence, so we've already got that out of the way.
Yeah.
And I think, when you stymie the learning process because of the political system within a school, that it really doesn't add to the capacity of that student, like you're saying. There could have been something I could come and say to a student and they'd be like, holy cow, that was awesome. I love the fact that he told me to just go wake up before a shift and knock a few doors, and after shift go knock a few doors and introduce myself to people. And you don't get that if you don't have that type of outside influence, because, the academic world can be a little stodgy.
Yeah.
I'm coming in for this shift of my class, and then, I have to do my exam and I have to learn this thing and I have to study the notes. And if I don't do this, and then, it's kind of like a break. I get to hear somebody like David Jackson come and speak, or I get to hear somebody like Jim Chester come and speak. I think it adds to the evolution of the programs of what people actually pay for.
Well, and I think it's also a way of creating that curiosity. Like, honestly, if I'm in a talk, like as a participant, and someone has either made me fall in love with them or actually hate them, but I'm going to go now research what they said because I actually want to prove them wrong, it's created a reaction. That's what you're looking for, right? So this ability for people to keep questioning, that's why you want that diversity of information, right? And I think, so when I finished my undergraduate, I was at Biola University in California, and then I did 1 year at Trinity Western in Canada. And people who know those schools know that they're Christian universities. So when I was at Trinity, we had this amazing man, Ravi Zacharias. For those who don't know, he's worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like, he's awesome. But he would go to UBC, University of British Columbia, heavily scientific, heavily evidenced, heavily evolutionary. And he would have live debates with scholars about the Dead Sea Scrolls, about evolution, about creationism, about somewhere in the middle. Like, and we would go as students to watch, not as dogma, but to learn how to question respectfully, but also keep questioning, learn how to keep learning, learn how to keep your brain on, how to keep curious without it having to be a disrespectful thing. So I would like to see more schools be able to have that kind of thought process.
And I love what you said is the power of acceptance, or the power of change, or the power of questioning. And I like the narrative that you share as being curious. And curiosity isn't necessarily a negative thing. It's also a positive thing. And it's not just like being a 5-year-old saying, hey, Mom, what's this? Hey, Mom, what's that? Hey, Mom, what's this? It's also the adult brain can be very curious to say, do I believe in that? How do you think about this? Well, I think about it like this because this is how I was brought up. But wow, that's pretty impressive that somebody else can have that much passion about a different view.
Well, I remember my freshman year at school and CMCC, and meeting people who had never seen a medical doctor, who had never taken a Tylenol. That blew my mind. Can you imagine these beautiful kids coming from chiropractic families that have that message to share? And I had come from the medical route. I was an EMT, I was an athletic therapist, I was on the way to medical school before my accident. So I had no concept that there were actual people in the world that existed like this. So that kind of conversation was fantastic.
So what are some things to keep yourself curious? What do you like to read? What do you like to listen to?
Well, you guys will love it. Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, any of the guys on Gaia at the moment, actually. So my husband and I have really dove into the Gaia information, and they just bring up things that will blow your mind, quantum physics and other concepts. But people who are on the fringe that are expanding what we know and understand, and bringing it back with a bit of context so that us mere mortals can kind of have an idea of what they're talking about. But those kinds of things.
What do you like to do for fun or in your spare time? What are your hobbies?
I have 4 kids. Spare time, we don't use that word. So my hobbies, we're a very physically active family. So the weekends are all about us getting out. Singapore is a super academic type of a community. So it's really on us to push the athletics or the physical nature. So we're a lot scooting, swimming, biking, but it's all about sort of family events, if you will. For fun, for friends, at the moment it's Zoom because we can't travel anywhere. But being where we are in the world, we're really, really close. Southeast Asia to Major Asia to Australia. So we can be anywhere within 2 hours. So we also really love to travel when we can.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think that dressing children and cooking for children for you is your hobby.
Well, I'm fortunate where I live in the world. We can get some very good help for that. So I'm lucky. I get to do the fun stuff, all of their gymnastics and soccer, and help with homework, and then go out and do the fun things. So I don't have to feel stressed about getting the meals ready.
Well, you are such a dynamic guest for us, and we just love the opportunity to share your story today.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, and it's heartfelt. We could say anything we want to because it's our show, but when I knew that you were coming on as our guest, I knew that we had built a relationship with you because we spent some time together out in California and getting to know you. And I follow what you do on social. So it's been really cool to be connected to you. And it's an honor to be able to have you on our show and for you to share your perspectives and being a Chiro mama and being
well, thank you for having me. And something you said earlier really struck with me because I thought, this interview is so fun and I'm so enjoying it. But how cool would it be for my now 6-year-old who's like struggling with whether to be a teacher or a chiropractor, but maybe he's a chiropractor one day and he sees this in the archives. Like, how cool would that be, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's just it. It's historical resonance now. Like you're time capsuled with Luke and I forever.
Yay, I love it.
So where can people go if they want to learn more about you or follow you on social media?
Oh, thank you. At Facebook, I'm Dr. Shara Downey, Facebook page, or drsharadowney.com. And right now for other practitioners, even for students, we've got the Common Sense Practice group. So it's really a place where people come in, ask questions, share ideas, share thoughts. It's about collaboration. And it was really great during this COVID time because a lot of times we were a bit ahead, 3 to 4 months in Singapore with COVID restrictions and protocols about how practice would work. So we were getting a lot of questions from docs all over the world. So that's where that group kind of grew from because it would allowed all of those big brains and big power ideas to come together.
I think that's very important to build a community. And that's what Chiro Hustle is doing for the larger chiropractic world, is building a community. And at this juncture of the interview, we're coming up on the tail end of it. But I do want to offer you the opportunity to share anything that you may have on your mind that we didn't ask you, that you think might help our audience, or just something that's been on your heart that you'd like to share.
I think the biggest thing at the moment that I'm observing, and really having had a chance to speak with practitioners all over the world, is this idea of leadership and how to stand up and then how much to stand up. I know we're being thrown arrows from everywhere at the moment, right? And so your chiropractic body or association notwithstanding, you still have knowledge. You've trained, you've studied, you've learned, and you've got a way of thinking that helps people disseminate knowledge that they're getting bombarded to them, your patients, your community, your family. And so the reason I say that is a lot of times when we talk about leadership, people assume it's only in their chiropractic space, but they have a position because of what they've created with their practice and in their community to have a voice. And the voice doesn't have to be only chiropractic because that's not the only facet of them. So integrate all parts of who you are, whether you're a sports person or let's say previously you were an epidemiologist. I mean, I don't know. We all have other lives, right? But bring that information together and allow people to come to you as a resource so that you can help them kind of wade through the waters of, again, crap that's out there, really, right? People are so confused right now and they don't know what to think, what to believe. They're so polarized. Families are being torn apart for dogmatic beliefs about something that hasn't even been fully around for a year. That's crazy. So let's kind of hold the hand of people, allow them to make their own mind, but create curiosity so that they're not completely being shut down. And then that creates a whole host of other issues in families.
Yeah, I think what Luke said earlier, well, Luke tells me this all the time, that 90% of what people fear never happens.
Oh.
So I think we work ourselves up over these things just because they're current topics. Mm-hmm. But in 5 years from now, if we look back, we'll be like, oh, that COVID thing that had everybody wearing masks and running around like lunatics, not liking each other. We'll also, your 6-year-old will watch that too.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And they'll be like, yeah, I grew up in the COVID times and people were so weird and people lost trust for each other. But now, because of that, we've bonded closer. Mm-hmm. And people that had indifference with each other now have learned to have more tolerance for each other. And I think that that's something also very superb with the ideas of where we're going is we don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
When we made our second chiropractic film, we asked one of the questions, like, what do you think the impact of this film will do for people? And Brady, the guy that we asked, was, you know what? He's like, I don't know where the impact of your movie is going to go, but it's going to impact people. And we don't know how many people it's going to impact, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I feel about what we're doing with Chiro Hustle with these interviews is we don't know what the impact we're having right now. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yep, exactly.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Chiro Hustle. And I want to thank you for being our guest today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for being our guest. And we want you to have a dynamic day over there in Singapore. And let's connect soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Have a good day.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.